is Ruckdog's Report with your Bubblehead Gamer, Andy. Greetings, welcome to Ruckdog's Report, the podcasting ramblings of yours truly, Andy Ruckdog Rucker, on my many voyages through mostly naval gaming. And here we are, episode 5. Now, we are continuing the little video experiment with Ruckdog's Report. Audio is going to be posted to the podcast distro as usual, so if you subscribe to the MBS podcast, you should be seeing this show as well in your queue. But there'll also be a companion video posted on YouTube, which I'll put a little link in the description there for folks that want to check that out. Alright, so let's get into it, shall we? My drink tonight is my old fallback, a tasty gin and tonic. Cheers. Yeah, it's the spot. You know, it's been pretty warm here in the Hampton Roads area. I'm talking about in the 80s, which is pretty crazy considering it's only the end of February, so a little refreshing drink tastes good. So, what have I been up to lately with gaming? Well, I actually got a couple of Dystopian Wars games in recently. I've found somebody here in the area that plays the FSA, so I've gotten a couple games in against him. One with my French and one with my Prussians. So that was one game FSA versus French and another game FSA versus Prussians. Now, he was active in the game last back in the pre-2.0 era. So he has some of the older models, and so I've been sort of picking from my older collection as well to play those games with him, because I've been trying to avoid some of the power creep that's inherent with any game system, but especially some of the units that we saw in the later part of Dystopian Wars 2.0 and 2.5. And it's been fun. I've been doing some smaller point totals with him to try and get him back into the feel of things, and I think we're doing pretty good there. Looking forward to my next chance to play a game with him. Of course, I've been playing some World of Warships again lately. There's all these new missions out there for the French battleship line that's coming out pretty soon. And there is a lot of interesting stuff going on with both the battleships and the collections, so I've been working my way through that and having a lot of fun. I did pick up a Musashi battleship. Of course, that's the Tier 9 premium Japanese battleship. Been, about 15 to 20 games in on her so far. I've been having a lot of fun. Those are some big guns. They do a lot of damage. That's been pretty fun to do. I've got a YouTube video up on the MBS YouTube channel for one of my Musashi games, so if you have a few moments, please take a look and see what you think. And of course, I am still slowly but surely chewing my way through the Yamamoto campaign for World of Warships. Only got about another 5 or 6 stars to go before I unlock the final mission of the final campaign, so hopefully have that finished up in the next couple of weeks, but we'll see. Now on the hobby table, I have spent basically the last week or so just working nonstop, well not nonstop, but putting quite a bit of time into the Ice Maiden, which is of course the big aircraft carrier for Dystopian Wars that looks like it's made out of an iceberg. And I was not lucky enough to get one of the Spartan ones, but I was lucky enough to be able to get in on the deal that Warcradle offered on the reproductions or remakes that they were doing. So I got mine, got it all painted up. I think it looks pretty good. There should be a couple of pictures floating around on the screen right now for you to take a look at. But if you want to see some more detailed pictures, I'll be posting those into a thread on MBS. And I'll also try and remember to put a link to that thread in the description for both the video and for the episode of the podcast. So there you go. Next up for me on the painting table is going to be some more Blazing Sun ships. I still have a few that I need to paint up. The ones I'm going to focus on next are going to be some aircraft carriers and some escorts and destroyers, so some more small ships to go with them. Yeah, so slowly but surely rounding out my Blazing Sun forces. All right, well, that's pretty much everything for the preamble. That brings us up to the main topic of discussion for this time around, which is the digitization of rules. Man, a few sips from this gin and tonic, and I already can't talk. This is not a sign of good things to come, folks. All right, so there's an interesting set of discussions that you can have inside of this general topic. I got started into miniature gaming at an interesting point in the 2006 time frame. And I say interesting because that was about the time, I think, that companies really started moving mainstream into the idea of doing digital rules. At the time, Games Workshop was putting all of their specialist games out for download. Things like Battlefleet Gothic, which is, the first game I played, as folks may remember. But also things like Blood Bowl and Epic and, I think War Master was another one. So all of these specialist games were available for download off the GW website in PDF form. And that has since snowballed. So there's a lot of other game companies that are offering more and more of their rules products online. You've got entire websites like War Games Vault and RPG Vault or something like that has just entire rule sets that are only available in PDF form, or maybe, if you really want to, they have a print-on-demand option. So the way that digital distribution for wargaming rules has exploded over the last 10, 12 years or so has been really fun to watch. And I think it's really expanded the scope of what folks think of when they consider the wargaming hobby. Now, there's three basic ways to put out digital versions of rules, right? You can, three basic ways of accessing rules. One is the old-fashioned analog or hard copy way. The other one is to put a basic PDF out, or what you might call a dumb PDF, that is just a digital document with no hyperlinks to various sections of the rules or anything like that. Oftentimes, these are just like the PDF print proofs of a hard copy rulebook, as opposed to a dedicated digital product. And then, of course, there's the next level, which is a full-on interactive PDF or ebook, or even like a web page-like thing where there's hyperlinks to look up special rules, maybe a picture of a model that you can pan around and rotate. I mean, some of the recent GW Army books and codexes have had that feature, which has been kind of interesting. I've got a couple of them to kind of play around with. And, there's pros and cons to each one of these different types of methods, right? For the analog one, of course, you never have to worry about dead batteries if you have a piece of paper in front of your hand, right? Because it'll always be there. You don't have to worry about your phone or your tablet running out of battery. They're somewhat more durable, right? You don't have to worry about dropping your rule book and having it shatter into a million pieces like you might with a tablet or a phone. And, to be honest with you, I find it somewhat easy to flip back and forth between large sections of a rule book quickly than I do just trying to scan through it with a PDF reader. Now, on the bad side, old-fashioned rulebook can't be updated whenever there isn't an errata or to correct a misspelling or a clarification. Or once that rulebook's been superseded, you're now stuck with a physical object that's no longer of direct use in a game because there's a new edition out. And I've been facing that little issue myself lately, especially with like my 6th edition and 7th edition 40K rule books that I have, and now all the older Dystopian Wars and Firestorm Armada books that I have that are soon to be superseded or have been superseded already. So that can be a challenge, especially when you have to move frequently like I do. But also, if you have to lug all that stuff to a game store, it gets to be a little bit of a logistical concern as well, just trying to sling 20 or 30 pounds of books with you when you go into a store. Now, the PDFs, obviously they're easy to produce and easy to distribute. You can download them to a lot of different devices because they're pretty much compatible with every device out there. I mean, the Adobe PDF is such a common and widespread format that you'll be hard-pressed, I think, to find a device that doesn't have the ability to read a PDF. Now, on the downside, PDFs can be pretty large files. There's some compression issues sometimes there that make it difficult to store a lot of them and also to switch between them rapidly. But on the plus side, you can also get a lot of utility by doing a quick text search to find rules rapidly inside of a PDF. So that is a good thing. Now, with the interactive, ebook type thing, those are great for rule lookup. I think they're probably the best of the electronic options when it comes to streamlining the game playing process and experience. But I imagine they're fairly expensive to develop and maintain. I mean, you generally, if you're having one of these fancy ebook type things, they're not free. You have to pay some sort of fee in order to be able to access them. And also, depending on the format they're in, they may or may not be compatible with all devices, so you could run into some compatibility issues. And I would imagine, too, that just like some larger PDFs, if you have an older device with less memory or processing power, it might be hard to run some of these on a particular device. Now, where does this leave me personally? So my philosophy is that I prefer to stick to analog references during a game, especially for things that I'm using all the time, like my unit stats, frequently used rules like a critical table and then that sort of thing. So I find because of that a solid quick reference sheet and some form of printed rules for my unit stats are just invaluable. Especially with the devices I have, it takes a finite amount of time to switch between a PDF of the rules and a separate PDF or other document type that has my unit stats on it. And then you run into the issue that, you have a relatively small field of view inside your device, so you have to scroll back and forth to try and find a particular unit, on and on. So I just really find that it's more convenient for me to have some hard copy stuff in front of me. But there's times that come up in gaming when you're trying to figure out, hey, how does this obscure rule work that I don't use all the time? And in those situations, that's where I find that things like a PDF of the rules come in handy, because I can pull up that PDF, I can type in the word or phrase I'm looking for, search for it, find it, much easier than I might be able to by just flipping through the book or relying on a sometimes spotty index. And of course, the Spartan rule books were notorious for their somewhat questionable, shall we say, layout. And the early ones didn't have indexes at all, and later ones, they had indexes. Sometimes they were useful, sometimes they weren't. So in situations like that, it's much easier, I find, to just pull up the PDF and do your search and find what you're looking for. Now, there's one other thing that I've seen and heard about, and that is the Privateer Press War Room app. And this does full-on support for the War Machine Hordes games that Privateer puts out. Look, I don't play either one of those games, so I don't have the app myself and haven't used it, but from what I've seen and heard, it allows you to do full rules lookups, and also allows you to track units and their stats during a game, down to the point where if they take damage or have some other effect applied to it, you can track that in the app. So you could theoretically play the entire game without ever having to reference some sort of hard copy. You could just use this War Room app to track and do everything. And that sounds intriguing. I mean, I really do think that sounds like it could be a way to go if you are trying to make a game experience that doesn't rely on any kind of hard copy references whatsoever. I don't know, like I said, how it performs. I haven't used it to play games. I don't play those games, but it does seem like it could be a good direction to go. And, it'll be interesting to see if other companies take up that same idea and start putting out apps of their own. Of course, the downside is I'm sure that the development for that app does cost some resources on the part of Privateer Press, which, may get translated either to higher model costs or some sort of charge for the app itself. But, that's something to be mindful of. Like I said, it will be interesting to watch. I really do think that a dedicated app for a particular miniatures game could be a great way to streamline the gaming experience, provided that you remember to charge the batteries for your phone or tablet, whatever you're running the app on. There's always a little trick there, I think. Well, I think that'll about do it for this edition of Ruckdog's Report. Now, as always, if you would like to comment on this episode, you can find the official discussion thread on the MBS forums. You can also leave a comment on the MBS Facebook page or in the comments section for the video of this episode on the MBS YouTube page. And if you do happen to be listening to this via YouTube and liked what you've heard, a like and or subscribe would be appreciated. And until next time, Ruckdog out.